Hello, and welcome to the Polaris Show. In school, I read this book called Feed. I needed some therapy after that one. The main problem wasn't the book itself. The setting and concept was quite interesting. The execution, on the other hand, was bad. They tried to relate to the younger generation using slang terms, and this related to the book being rather dated. But there was a game that literally took the concept of a really scummy corporation controlling the world and did it in a more fun and interesting way.
Compound is a roguelike VR shooter. You take the role of a rebel soldier, fighting against the evil higher-ups of an EA-like corporation. This corporation is creating a virus to make the population have to pay for a medicine to cure themselves, month after month, being forced to generate revenue for the higher-ups who get richer and richer year by year. It's up to you, as a rebel soldier, to hopefully find an end and put a stop to this torture of commons. To achieve this, you use a myriad of weapons, everything from common weaponry to things that are a bit more strange. Overall, all the weapons feel very fun to use. The recoil and reloading is arcadey. The recoil usually just boils down to artificial spread, rather than having the guns fly upwards like in a lot of realistic shooters. Reloading usually just boils down to what you see in action movies. Nothing too complicated. However, it does fit well into the gameplay, and overall doesn't really require you to have any real steel firearm knowledge to use them. Reflecting these arcadey gun mechanics is a very arcadey art style. Every single area and prop in Compound is 8-bit styled, complete with 8-bit textures and low poly models. This gives Compound a very unique feel, and, depending on how you feel, could be a way more interesting sensory experience than an ultra-realistic VR game. But just because the graphics look less detailed doesn't mean they don't contain a lot of detail. Every single section of the Compound has a very unique look to it. Levels are filled with very subtle touches to make the world feel alive despite being an 8-bit world. Dark humor is subtly put into posters all over the Compound. Did I say subtly? Oh, no, it's pretty obvious. I mean, look at these sales posters. Why would anyone buy that? I bought multiple years' worth. Despite the AI being simple, the enemies in this game are very fun to fight against. A quantity over quality approach is used, with most enemies usually taking only a few hits to kill, unless they're a very tanky enemy, or a mini-boss. With so many enemies on the field, you will constantly have to dodge and weave and go behind cover to try and dodge all the projectiles being thrown at you. Very few things in this game are hit-scanned, and they're usually in your possession, making it feel very much like a roguelite. You have no dodge or block moves, but this is easily supplemented by your 3D VR movement that you can do. Just make sure you don't get too invested and accidentally dodge roll into a wall. The game is still in early access, being made by one person, but that really shouldn't be a discouraging factor, because if the game stopped being developed tomorrow, the amount of content that is there would be more than enough to justify its price. And more importantly, it is still being worked on, with no sign of stoppage. 1 to 3 minor updates come out every month. These usually come in the form of quality of life updates, a new weapon, or a new boss or enemy, each one feeling cleverly crafted and fitting in perfectly with all the existing content. The only nitpicks I have about the game were about features that made perfect sense when the game was small, but as more and more things are added, I feel like they might need some reworking, especially due to the nature of the final boss, which I'm not going to talk about here for spoiler reasons. Close range or slow moving projectile weapons tend to be very ineffective. This wouldn't be a problem if we could collect a huge stockpile of weapons like a lot of roguelite games. However, the only weapon slots that you have are your 2 hands and 1 holster slot. This means if you want to be able to reload your weapons that requires 2 hands, you can only effectively hold 2 weapons. This was fine before the boss was added, and the amount of total weapons was very low. However, as more and more weapons are added, loadouts seem to get more and more restrictive, because you could only hold 2 out of 15 weapons rather than 2 out of 5. Even expanding the amount of slots you can have by 1 would dramatically increase the amount of variety in your loadout. For example, you could have a limited ranged weapon and a grenade weapon, and still have enough room for a weapon that can effectively fight the boss. Weapon acquisition is another nitpick I have with the game. How it currently works is that you get one random weapon at the start of each zone, which has 2 floors. Again, these random weapon drops were great when there was only 5 weapons, and no weapons had overlapping uses. However, I have found more and more often that I'll get multiples of the same class of weapon, signified by its color usually. Also, because of how RNG works, you might not get a certain weapon that you want to play with for a very long time. Just being able to pick from 3 random weapons rather than just getting 1 random weapon would be a huge step up. A weapon trading area would also be an interesting avenue to explore. Old systems have been retrofit before, so I do see these things being addressed too. And even if the developer wants to keep it the way it is, the systems are still nice the way they are.
Overall, Compound is a great game that focuses on mechanical fun and feels great to play. My only nitpicks are things that should be retrofit but felt great at some point. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get out of here before M Corp executes me for thought crimes.